watch this video when they finish working. So let's get started. Feel free, guys, to message me with any questions, but use the chat box so that once I'm finished, I will have some time to go through the chat for any questions. Okay. But before we get started, if you guys give me an idea, so just in the chat, tell me what is your interest in CBD. So a lot of people may have some interest because they are interested in it for pain relief. Perhaps they're interested in it for sleep issues, cancer, ADHD, anxiety. I've heard a number of things that people may be dealing with that they might be interested or something. So just let me know, and that gives me an idea if we're gonna cover everything. I want to try to make sure I'm covering all the bases for everybody. And then, like I said, feel free to ask any questions via the chat box as we go along. And towards the end, I'll go back and see if we have any questions to answer. So just for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Peets Talbot. I am the medical director at Ocean Rock Wellness here in Bermuda. So the first time I did this talk was a couple of months ago, and we got a lot of response from people. It's definitely started to, CBD has definitely been the new hot topic as we've seen it start popping up on the shelves in the pharmacies and grocery stores and things like that. People are very intrigued by it. A lot of people don't know how to use it. So what I'm hoping is that this talk that I'm doing is going to be a really good introduction for you. You're going to feel really comfortable after I have done this talk with understanding what CBD is, what it can be used for, and how you're going to dose it. So those are my big goals for you guys. So welcome again. All right. So CBD has a very rich history in the sense that CBD or cannabinoids have been used for years and years and years and years and years. However, when CBD first at least was classified, so when it was first extracted from the hemp plant, this was done in about 1940s by a university professor out of University of Illinois by the name of Roger Adams. And so he first pretty much discovered exactly the component CBD oil that when he extracted it from the hemp plant, and actually recognized some of the first benefits for it. It's been later on going to researched even further by other scientists such as Dr. Walter Lowe, who did some first CBD testing on lab and animals, and then also started to show that CBD itself did not show any changes in those animals as far as their altered mental state. From then, the research has taken on. So that was back in like 1940s as well when Dr. Lowe was doing his research. And in 1960s, the research continued to what we have. We see a lot of research now today on CBD. And I would say that though we have lots of studies, which is why I'm able to kind of do this presentation, knowing that we have science behind some of the things that I will present with you today, there's still also we can still also use some more research in different ways for the CBD, but it's all very interesting. So we know a lot about CBD today. So CBD today, we see a lot of talk about CBD. And if you haven't seen about CBD, you actually have, if you're going into any pharmacy or any grocery store now, you'll actually see CBD on the shelves. And the reason why is that CBD has now been made legal throughout, I would say, the United States, UK, Canada, here in Bermuda. This has now become a legal product that you can now resource, and you can resource it over the counter, so you do not need to have a prescription for CBD. And that's why you're seeing it become so mainstream. Now, when I want to take care of one of the biggest questions right now, and one of the biggest questions that I see and people ask a lot about is, what is the difference between CBD, or let's say hemp, and marijuana? Okay, so I want to talk to you about the cannabis plant family. That is the plant family that has the hemp plant, and also what we typically have heard of as marijuana or cannabis. Okay, now what I want you guys to recognize is that both hemp and marijuana belong to the cannabis plant families. There's other plants that also belong to that family, but they're very similar to, even though they're in the same family, they're different. They're very different plants and have very different properties. And this is just the same as turnips and cabbage. So turnips and cabbage are belonging to the same plant family, but if you know that if you know what a turnip looks like and know what a cabbage looks like, not only do they look differently, they taste different, so they have their own different properties. And so that's what I want you guys to first understand about marijuana and hemp, is that same family, completely different plants. Okay, so what I want to talk to you first about is marijuana plant. Okay, so marijuana historically needs to be even grown differently. It's generally grown indoors in more like greenhouses. They are particularly growing marijuana to cultivate the THC component of marijuana. Now, THC is the component in marijuana that gives people a high, okay? And so historically, the marijuana that we're starting to see now is the growers have trying to get the marijuana percentage very high in this plant. And so this is the marijuana. Now, they also like to grow marijuana where they extract the male plants, and they're looking really for that flowering bud, which is going to have the high THC percentage. And they also have some CBD. So historically, THC will be in a marijuana plant upwards of 10%. And you now even have some, from what I understand, some marijuana growers are trying to bring in strains of marijuana that they've gotten the THC level as high as 30%. So lots of THC in that. It still has some CBD, but generally it's more of a THC plant. Now, on the other hand, you have hemp plants. Hemp plants are usually grown outside. They usually have a mix of the male and female plants. And the concentration of THC in the hemp plant is generally less than 1%. And often it's less than 0.3%. So in the US, for instance, with their structure and their control in the agricultural, if they have a hemp farmer whose crop has a THC above 1%, then they have to destroy that crop, okay? Because they would need a special license. They would have classified that more of as marijuana, and they would have to kind of get rid of it. So you can understand that one of the big things, one of the big differences with the hemp plant is that it generally has little to no THC in it. It's very negligible, which is why it's less likely to get you high, okay? Unlike the marijuana we see today, which does get people high, and actually because it's got so much THC, then the marijuana plants in the 60s and even in the 80s, you can get a lot of even negative side effects. And I can see how some doctors will be very cautious, especially if they, especially cautious around the new marijuana, because truthfully, with this THC, these very high levels of THC, people can have issues with psychosis, because THC is a component that can not only make you high, but it works in the brain and has what we call psychoactive components and can trigger psychosis. So this is something that we really got to be careful about. So hopefully you guys understand now that the marijuana plant, lots of THC, generally very low levels of CBD, and the hemp plant, very little THC and lots more CBD. And that is the biggest difference. Okay. Alrighty. So what I want you guys to also understand about the hemp and the marijuana is that there is now lots of research on the two components that we generally see, which is the THC and the marijuana, the CBD. All right. What we now are understanding is that there is actually lots of cannabinoids in both of these plants, okay? And the cannabinoids are actually what seems to have the health benefits, all right? So when we talk about CBD, we're sometimes really referring to one cannabinoid, but this cannabinoid really truly comes with lots of cannabinoids. And that's really, really how you want to actually take medicinal cannabinoids, is in a form where you're going to get lots of cannabinoids, because it seems that they work what we call synergistically. They work together, okay? So cannabinoid actually has lots of cousin cannabinoids that actually come with it, or brother and sister cannabinoids that come with it. They have right now, I think, recognized about 500 different cannabinoids. But we know that if we just separate one and we do studies where people just get one, they don't do as good as when they get the whole package, all right? So that's why you will hear people say, this is a broad spectrum or a full spectrum cannabinoid oil. What they're just trying to tell you is it has a lot of different cannabinoids in them, and that is actually a good thing. So write that down. You want to look for full spectrum and broad spectrum cannabinoids. Alrighty. So now what I want you guys to understand is that cannabinoids themselves are also working on a system that we already have set up in our body. So we have a system in our body that's called the endocannabinoid system. And what that means is that our body actually makes cannabinoids itself, and our body has receptors for cannabinoids. So you can think of your body as having its own hemp system going on in itself, its own marijuana system within itself, which is really, really cool, because your body is actually making its own marijuana in a way. And I found that really, really interesting. And what's really also interesting is this endocannabinoid system, which we have receptors throughout our brain and different other tissues, and also in the immune system, seems to help a lot in regulating our immune system, helping with mood, helping with memory, helping with concentration, helping with thinking, which is why you're also going to start to see the conditions that it helps with is all because of these kind of receptors that we already have in our body. And also, so cannabinoid, its self is also really, really, really good for muscle pain and convulsions and inflammation, okay? All right, so I'm going to mostly heavily talk most about cannabinoids, but if you have any other questions in relation to THC, I'm happy to answer those too. Okay, but the reason why I'm focusing mostly on the cannabinoids is because the cannabinoids is really what you're going to have most access to in the over the counter. Why I say that is because generally throughout most of the US and UK and even in Bermuda, the THC component is generally illegal. So some places have made it legal, but a lot of places still it's illegal, and so that is very difficult for people to source. And like I said, it gets very confusing for people. So let's mostly just focus on cannabinoid. Okay, so I already talked to you a little bit about the endocannabinoid system. Okay, now we have two receptors for this, and you should just know this. It's the CB1 and the CB2 receptors, and our body already has this, okay? All right, what's very interesting is that THC binds to these, but truthfully, CBD does not, and that's one really, really interesting thing. So whereas CBD binds to it, it's almost like having a kind of plug that, you know, you have a outlet and you can kind of plug something in and it fits and it connects. That's kind of how THC works. But interestingly enough, CBD doesn't seem to just directly bind. It uses other signaling pathways to help our body to regulate itself, and really helps the body to create a balance and to keep it in a what we call a neutral and balanced state. So I like to think of cannabinoid as a maestro for our body. So if something is or some hormones are ranging very high, such as stress hormones, or maybe we have some chemical signals in our brain that are really excitatory, so causing us to be anxious and are really hyperactive, the CBD would tell our body to just calm that down. But likely if we have a low hormones, so hormones that are maybe meant to make us feel good, and something such as serotonin, which makes us feel good and makes us happy, if that's low, the CBD will help to rise that. So do different signaling pathways. So that's what is really awesome about the CBD, is that it seems to understand what's too high in our body, what's too low, and help to bring your body into a balanced state. Okay, so I had this slide in when we were doing it live. I'm still going to take questions, but if this is a good time, just to remind you guys to just anything that's coming to mind or starting to come to mind, just write it in your chat box. And what I'll do is I'm going to get to those questions just at the end. But hopefully you guys are staying with me, because it is a lot of information and it's a learning process. So next. All right, so we're learning a lot about CBD and the uses of CBD, and I myself, you know, started to CBD came into my radar about a couple of years ago, mostly because people were first coming to me and asked me a lot about medical marijuana when that started to become an option and people wanted to use that. So the reason why I'm saying this is that because it's been 2 years on my radar, it's taken me a while to kind of get through all the research, or, you know, do to really go through some of the educational process to really figure out what it is. But I'll tell you about some of the preliminary studies and what CBD is been what has been shown to actually help. Okay, so there are now preliminary studies that show that CBD can inhibit tumor growth, making chemotherapy more effective, and so that it helps to protect the healthy tissues and the healthy cells while helping to destroy the harmful cells. And so it is being used as a what they call an adjunct to chemotherapy, which means that they are using it with people who are doing chemotherapy to help them. It's been known to relieve pain and inflammation, and this is a really big one, especially since the medical community are trying to move away from the more addicting medications such as opiates, or some of the pain medicines that have historically in the past been very destructive to people's kidneys and liver. So, and you have people who have neuropathic pain that is really hard to control through you know, different modalities that we've used. So what we're finding is actually CBD is really complementary to this. And I have really one nice case study. I have one girl who I've been actually struggling with her pain. She has what is called a neuropathic pain. And she complains of not having really sharp, painful shooting pains, and she had been dealing with this for a couple of years. We recently just started our own CBD, which was, I want to say she's probably 2 or 3 months into it now, and she's starting to get some relief as far as now being able to sleep better and actually walk and move around really more. So this is really nice to see, because, you know, prior to this, we had very little options. She actually, though we had tried opiates before, they didn't really agree with her. They made her very sleepy. She found that she couldn't drive her car and things like that. So CBD is really nice. So really it has become a really good option for just general pain for people, but even people with refractory pain issues, very difficult to use pain issues, the CBD is starting to be a real helpful treatment tool for them. One other thing that CBD can do is it reduces nausea and vomiting. And so you can see why also people who are dealing with cancer or having to do chemo or radiation are using CBD because it helps with that. It helps with anxiety, and that's also a big part of CBD now, is that a lot of people are going towards it for anxiety because you don't get the side effects. Or people who have had refractory anxiety. And when I mean refractory, they've tried different prescription medications and different modalities, and it's not helped. We're seeing CBD actually be quite helpful for them. It helps to improve quality of sleep. So for those who are having troubles with insomnia, for people who are having both issues, some people will tell me that they have problems falling asleep. Others tell me that they have issues with staying asleep. CBD can help with both. It also helps to fight viruses and viral infections by boosting the immune system. So chronic infections that sometimes people have, or more of the underlying viruses such as cold sores, which is a virus that kind of comes out, that sort of thing. But the cold and the flu that will also be helped by CBD. And muscle spasms, as it helps to just relax the body and relax the muscles and helps with inflammation. So that's very interesting with CBD. Another thing that I also kind of want to mention that we're seeing with CBD is that CBD can also help with convulsions. So I think a lot of people have started to hear stories, and that's one of the things that I've heard. I've heard of people who have had seizure issues and have had ongoing seizure issues for years, now starting CBD and not having to take as much as the prescription seizure medications, or they have been able to replace their seizure medicines altogether with a CBD source. Another use for it is mental health conditions like psychosis, such as schizophrenia. It can also help with that as well. So very exciting stuff. What I will tell you is that I've just probably went through about 10 conditions that CBD has been known to, but because of the different pathways and how CBD works, there's probably over 50 conditions that CBD has been known to help. And I'll kind of try to list as many of those things throughout the rest of the talk. But I find that very interesting, what we see so far with the preliminary studies. So let's talk a bit about, let's pause for a second and talk a little about facts versus fiction. And the reason why I want to talk to you guys about this is because there is so many misconceptions around CBD, and I think that it's, you know, I would say it's reasonable. I think the misconceptions are reasonable because CBD gets so much confused with THC and marijuana, that I can see how people can be a little bit put on guard by it. And I would say, you know, which makes me think about one story, you know, where I had was seeing one lady. She was an elderly lady. She was in her 80s, and she had come to me. I would say about 4 or 5 months ago now, and she was somebody who had been seen for very many years. She had conditions of rheumatoid arthritis. She had Parkinson's. She did have a history of dementia. So she was dementia. She was having depression. And she actually is very quite swift. She knows the names of all my kids. She knows roughly when they was born and that sort of thing. So she's just very sweet, and we have a really, really good relationship. And when I had saw her about 4 or 5 months ago, she actually was dealing with some depression, and the depression seemed to be triggered really from pain. She started to have some inflammation signs. So she was talking to me about shoulders hurting, her fingers were hurting, her rheumatoid arthritis was essentially flaring, and she wasn't sleeping as well. And one of the things that first popped into my head as I was starting to do a lot of research on the CBD then was like, yeah, this would be a really great option for you. Let's try CBD. I liked it because CBD does not cause drowsiness. It wouldn't affect her depression. Actually, it could help her mood and make her feel better. And I didn't have to worry about any toxicity towards her kidneys and liver, especially since she was on other medications. So I was really gung-ho about starting it. And she was acceptable to trying it. Her other doctor, who was a doctor who managing her depression, was very, very reluctant to start her, and actually you know, didn't agree with me starting her on it. And it was a bit frustrating because they actually was like, you know, in the conversation to me that they thought that it would actually make her high. They thought that it may make her psychotic. So they were really not really comfortable with doing it, and that's because of some of the myths around what CBD does. Okay, so let's just blow some of those myths out of the, you know, let's talk about facts and fiction here about what CBD does. Okay, so CBD will not get you high, okay, and does not cause psychosis because it is not psychoactive. It does not act on the brain like marijuana, so you do not get those side effects from CBD. CBD also is completely natural, all right? And it's a natural way, because it is derived from a plant, it is a natural way to relieve a host and of elements of ailments, which I will get to soon. It has an entourage effect, so that's also a fact that you should know, is that CBD comes with other cannabinoids in the hemp plant. What you want to use is the hemp plant that has not only the roots, but also the aerial portion, so the portion that's outside of the ground. And what we know is that it can regulate pleasure, memory, concentration, thinking, even body movement. And what I have known, because through some of the studies now, is that it has properties that are related to anti-inflammation, antioxidant, antipsychosis, anticonvulsant, and antidepressant properties. And because of that, it's known to benefit people for over 50 conditions. So that's the facts around CBD. Now, let's talk a little bit specifically about anxiety and depression, because this is a huge one for CBD. So we're seeing a lot of use for people in CBD, and with really, really good results as far as helping people to calm some of that anxiety state. And like I said, it really helps to naturally balance some of those chemical imbalances that people may be either genetically disposed to or dealing with when it comes to stress. Okay, so we know now that 18% of our population has been diagnosed with some sort of anxiety disorder. I feel like in my practice, I see lots of anxiety, and this could be because I see kids and adults. I'm seeing lots of anxiety, even in our kid population, going all the way to adults. And it could be, anxiety could be triggered from a different number of reasons. But what we know now and what we see is that CBD is helping to control that. Okay, we have studies that not only show that CBD is good for generalized anxiety disorder, it can be good for panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. What's also great about CBD is because of its ability to act in this endocannabinoid system that I introduced to you guys a few slides back, and this whole brain signaling system, that it also benefits several neurological disorders, and those mainly being Alzheimer's, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, because it's helping our body. What it can help our body do is regenerate neurons that we've lost, so it can help with revert memory impairment. So there was one study that they did on mice who were prone to get Alzheimer's. So these mice had the Alzheimer's gene. When they was given CBD, the mice did not show the cognitive decline, so they didn't show that memory loss and that memory impairment based off of getting the CBD, which is really cool and exciting. So this was a really good tool for people who know that they are having memory issues, are predisposed to Alzheimer's, so have seen it in family members that are perhaps older than them, are really looking to prevent them. This is also really good if somebody had a traumatic brain injury, then CBD will be very beneficial for them because it will help to prevent nerve loss and also regenerate the nerve cells. So it's really cool. All right. CBD has also been shown to be very beneficial in the processes of stroke and heart attack and metabolic syndrome, which is where we see people who have high blood pressure, but they also might have high blood sugars. They also might be overweight, and they most also have issues with their cholesterol. What CBD is, what we see with CBD is that it will lower high blood pressure, it will low, and it will also cause the reversal of plaque formation in the arteries, which is also super cool. So this is something that people really should know, especially because you're gonna, if somebody is buying something from the pharmacy and they are already taking high blood pressure medications, you want to be conscious that you should be monitoring your blood pressure, because just by adding the CBD, your blood pressure may be low. And so you should be letting your doctor know that. And they may even recommend you decreasing some of your blood pressure medications if you're going to take CBD on a regular basis. But I think the going hypothesis for how the CBD does that is because it helps with stress and anxiety. There's sometimes it's driving people's high blood pressure, that because it's actually helping in that modality, it will naturally also decrease blood pressure because of that, which is really interesting and awesome. All right. So pain. So as I mentioned before with my patient I had a little bit earlier, CBD seems to be a really good treatment option for all sorts of pain. And it seems so. What doctors probably, what you may or may not know is that we have certain medications that can only deal with certain types of pain, okay? Depending on what is triggering that pain. Is it a nerve that's getting pinched, which gives you a certain type of pain? Is it a bone that's rubbing on each other that's giving you a certain type of bone, or a bone that's broken? Or perhaps you got a tumor pressing on something and that's giving you another type of pain. Or perhaps you have a muscle strain or pull that's giving you a certain type of pain. And based on your certain type of pain, you might be prescribed different types of pain medicines. But what we know with CBD is it actually helps with the whole range of pain that we see. So any sort of pain, it helps. So it could be pain from cancer, it could be fibromyalgia pain, it could be headaches, irritable bowel, low back pain, migraines, multiple sclerosis. All those sorts of conditions are actually have been shown to be helped when being given the CBD. And it seems to be because CBD helps with reducing the inflammation. We also see CBD having a positive, well, I think people would think this is positive. Well, it also helps to reduce weight. So THC, which you know from marijuana, can actually induce appetite. And sometimes with clients who are going through cancer, they actually might need that, okay? Which is why that's a little bit of a different talk. Now, what CBD does is CBD has the opposite effect with appetite, okay? So it does, it actually helps to decrease appetite. And I believe in the UK, there is a, based off of this science, they have a somewhat CBD product or a medication that essentially works on the CBD receptor and blocks it, but is actually prescribed for people who have issues with obesity. And so that's one of the great things about CBD. Now, let us talk a little bit about the different types of CBD products available. Because if you have been to the pharmacy or seen the section of CBD products in a pharmacy or in the grocery stores now, you will see that there is many different types. You can have ingestibles, which these are CBD products that you can eat. You have smokables. So this is what they call vaping. This is where they have put CBD oil in something called a e-cigarette, and you are inhaling the CBD. Or you have topicals. Topicals mean that you are rubbing the CBD on your body wherever you feel like you need it. So I want to say that ingestibles are probably going to be the most common and the most easily accessible. Now, I prefer if I am prescribing somebody to CBD, I do like them to use it sublingually. This is the second fastest way to get it in your system. Inhaling it or vaping it will be the first, but that can come up with its own issues. So when I feel like I'm trying to do the best and the safest thing and avoid some of the negative side effects, I like to go with probably the best way to get it in, and I think that is sublingual. So that is when you put oil, the CBD oil, underneath your tongue, and you allow that to sit for 60 seconds before you swallow. So now with the other ingestibles, because it comes in gummies and chewing gum and all sorts of other ways now, one thing that I would warn people about is they believe that when CBD is ingested it is changed by our stomach acids, and as our body kind of digest it, the CBD can be transformed to THC. And so that is something to be very conscious of. And you can get some of the effects of THC, obviously, when you're just eating the CBD, even if you had a product that didn't have any CBD. So your body can actually change CBD to THC, and then you can get a little bit of the high, or you can get some of the drowsiness or the sleepiness effect. And one of the other things is that when we also digest it, it seems like our body doesn't really absorb as much. So if you feel like you've used CBD in a ingestible way before, maybe a cookie or something, or candy or something like that, and you didn't feel the side effects, it's probably not that it probably didn't work. It's probably because you just didn't digest it and get it into your system very well. So now, the topicals, I would say, are also generally prescribed through doctors. So a special compound in pharmacy will add CBD oil to our cream, and clients or a patient can essentially get that and rub it to where it hurts. So if you have a knee arthritis or a shoulder arthritis, you can actually get a cream made up. You can rub the CBD on that area and get the direct effect of the CBD. Another thing, just going back to the ingestibles, just so you know, that if you are eating CBD or ingesting CBD, it does take a few hours to take effect. So where sublingual can happen relatively quickly in the matter of minutes, 25, 30 minutes, CBD, if you ingest it or eat it, can actually take hours to kind of give you an effect. So you shouldn't eat a ton of it, just hope and expecting to see an effect very soon. You actually have to wait a couple hours to really get the true effect of it. Okay, so let's talk about who can take CBD. All right. So in general, CBD is relatively safe. We don't see any issues with toxicity for all ages. So you can have a range of pediatrics to the very elderly being able to take it, and also pregnant women being able to take it. We don't see any toxicity in those groups. And this is with people who are taking thousands and thousands of milligrams of CBD a day, and there's no real known toxicity from it, okay? Now, as far as the conditions that benefit from CBD, as I promised to tell you, I'll go through this slide, just giving you an idea about what conditions that CBD can help with. So acne, for one, attention deficit hyperactivity, ALS, anxiety, bacterial infections as it boosts your immune system, broken bones. This is really cool for, if somebody, because it not only can help with broken bone, and if it helps that it builds the bones, it also can help with osteoporosis as well, because it's helping to stimulate the cells that build bone, but it can also help with the pain that's related from that broken bone. So depression, diabetes, dyskinesia means it's just a strange movement disorder, seizures, heart disease, inflammation, irritable bowel syndrome, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, schizophrenia, substance abuse, and withdrawal symptoms. All right. Okay. So, how much do you need? Now, this is a really really good question, because it's over the counter. You're going to be able to have to do a bit of calculations yourself, unless you are able to talk to the pharmacist or you have a physician that can help you. But the idea is that most people should start dosing their CBD. Like if you've never ever been on it, you would start really low and something like 2.5 milligrams. Or five, yeah, usually 2.5. Some people will start at 5 milligrams and they may start that twice a day, or they can also do it once a day, depending on what they're using it for. So what it's really, and the reason why there is a bit of a range is because we have to take into effect how big you are, what your body's chemistry is, and that means that how your body generally processes stuff. Some people's bodies will clear medications very easily, or metabolize things very easily, and others it takes a longer, it will stay in their system longer. And also it also depends on the severity of the condition as well. So something minor, you would, for instance, you may start off with like a muscle sprain. You might say you might start at a smaller dose. However, if you had something really, really bad, like a very severe broken bone, you'll probably even use a bit more than that, if that makes sense. The idea is that you do want to allow your body to just kind of get the right dose. So always start on the lower side, just seeing how you react to it. Some people can be very sensitive to certain medications, just like anything else. Just start low and then work your way up. But just, that's something for you guys to write down. 2.5 to 5 milligrams is really where you want to start. Okay. So the Mayo Clinic has made some suggestions around even the dosing for the CBD based off of the condition that you're dealing with. So chronic pain, we usually will start, like I said, at 2.5, but it can go up to as much as 20 milligrams of CBD a day. Epilepsy would be a more severe condition and tends to need more, so 200 to 300 milligrams of CBD. It's not unusual for that. Movement problems due to Huntington's disease, they found that 10 milligrams of CBD per kilogram of body weight daily over a period of 6 weeks was a good dose generally. Sleep disorders can be anywhere from 40 milligrams to 160 milligrams of CBD. Multiple sclerosis, there was a pretty significant range, so it can start at 2.5 and go all the way up to 120 milligrams. Schizophrenia from 40 milligrams to actually 1,280 milligrams. Glaucoma as well from 20 to 40 milligrams. So how to use? I recommend doing it sublingual. So this is where you're actually going to buy the oil. You're not going to do a ingestible or anything like that. You're going to buy a oil that has this has a yellowish tinge to it, and you're going to drop that underneath your tongue. What you want to do is that you want to make sure that it absorbs very well. So you want to hold that underneath your tongue for 60 seconds before swallowing. And this is the best way to make sure that, you get the absorption via the blood vessels underneath the tongue. So that's called taking it sublingual. Now, because CBD is derived from hemp, hemp is a plant that is grown, you want to make sure that you can verify the source of it. Now, and because CBD is made legal, it is over the counter. There is not there's no FDA regulation over the product. So you can also have people who claim to have a hemp oil or a CBD oil and it be not truly that. So that is something that I want you guys to warn you about. There are products over the counter that may say hemp, but they might be a little bit of hemp and the rest is olive oil or coconut oil or some other oil, even vegetable oil. But if you are also, if it is a hemp and it is derived from hemp, we also want to make sure that it's organic, it's free of mold, it's free of pesticides, insecticides, especially if this is something that you're going to implement into a daily routine for yourself to help your body. You don't want to be putting anything that's going to have a lot of toxins or not the right purity into your body. It will just make the inflammation that you're dealing with worse. So one thing you want to make sure to do when you're buying a CBD oil is you have to verify the source. You also want to verify the process in which they extract the CBD from the plant. And that is because that CBD and oils are very sensitive. And to get the real quality, you want to have a specific technique, you know, a lab that knows exactly what they're doing to extract it, so you're getting the best quality and from the hemp plant. And then what a really good source would have, the person who is actually supplying the CBD, they will have a certificate of analysis, and this will be something that can be given to the consumer, and what it would say is whether or not it's been analyzed for any toxins, and also whether it has the concentration of CBD, and make sure that you can verify that it has very, very low levels or no levels of THC. So it's really important to read the label. As I said, that the best type of CBD is derived from the aerial portion, so of the plant, so the whole plant. And then examine the package and don't buy into false claims. So really be conscious when you are purchasing that. There is people who are pretty much out there selling snake oil and saying that it's CBD, and you're not going to get what you think you're getting, and therefore you're not going to get the health benefits that you think you're going to get. Alrighty, so this is just for an example. This is a product that we use, which is called Cyto CBD. They have broad spectrum hemp extracted oil, and what this means is that it has 0 THC, so they have gone the farthest step and completely removed any THC from it. Then there is full spectrum, which has a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of THC, less than 0.3%. Again, these are the type of two catchwords you want to use. You don't want to look for the fact that it is USA organic, all right, and how they have extracted it as well. So, all right. So, I've given you an idea about how to use it. All right. So again, like I said, it's sublingual underneath the tongue. And we're getting just to the end here to wrap it up. So as I said, start low and then go slow. So I want you to have some kind of final take-home points. And then you can always, you know, include your physician in the conversation if you're starting CBD. And I think that that's really important, because even if it's over the counter, as I said, it can affect, it can lower your blood sugar, it can lower your blood pressure. So if you're taking any medications that are related to those issues, then it may be important for your practitioner or your doctor to actually help you lower those medications, if that is something that, you know, seems to be what your body needs. So obviously, if your blood pressure is starting to trend low, then you may not need as much blood pressure medicine, and vice versa. Same thing goes with your blood sugar. It is not a physically addicting medicine, so you don't have to worry about that when it comes to pain withdrawal. There's no withdrawal symptoms from CBD. If you decide to stop taking it, then that you decide to stop taking it. And it also is a dose dependent on your weight, and it also can be dose dependent on the severity of the condition. So if you're under a lot of inflammation and a lot of stress, then you'll probably need a lot more than somebody who doesn't have as much inflammation and doesn't have as much stress. All right. So these are the resources that I used in my presentation, all right? And as I said, I'm doing a recording, so you guys will get these. And you have made it to the end of the presentation with me. this is the time where I would not only like to thank you, but I want to go to the chat and make sure that there is not anybody who has any questions for me. So I'm just going to bring that up. Alrighty, so we have a few questions. Let me see. All right, so one of the questions was, can it be used for psoriasis? And what, so psoriasis is mostly an autoimmune modulated issue, so autoimmune condition. And there is some nice studies that actually show that CBD can help with the immune system and regulating that. So I don't know specifically when it relates to psoriasis. I'm sorry, I don't know that answer, but it could potentially help. So I would say perhaps, but I'll have to look up some more information to say specifically. Another question is what is a high quality CBD oil that it can be purchased in Bermuda? And we carry one at Ocean Rock Wellness. As I mentioned, we have gone through the trouble of making sure we rigorously secured a CBD oil that we can trust. We've seen the certificate of analysis. We can verify that the quality of the CBD oil is great. We bring in one that has 0 THC, so we don't want anybody to have any issues with if they had to be drug tested, or if sometimes we deal with athletes and they have to get tested through the Athletics Association. So we make sure that it has 0 THC in it. It is called Cyto CBD. So that is a very high quality brand, which is organic and that you can get in Bermuda. How addictive is it? So it is the next question. It's not addictive. You can use CBD, and that's what I really like about it. I've been very cautious because I've been a doctor who has put people on opiates and pain medicines like Percocets and morphine and those like that. And what I noticed when I used to do that type of medicine and put people on those type of medications is that I was always chasing it. And I couldn't tell because two things will happen with those medications. One, they generally don't work. So the person will gradually start to need a higher and higher dose. And those medications are very addictive. That means if they stopped it, they would get withdrawal symptoms. But we don't see that with CBD at all, which makes it really, really nice. And that's one of the things I really love about it. And I like that you can use it in all ages, from 0 to 100. Just go for it. How can we define a high quality? How can we define? I think this question is, how can we define a high quality to a low quality CBD oil? I think if I was just going to the shelf, just over the counter, I think it will be very difficult to do that unless you can trust the owners who are bringing it in, who that they would supply only high quality. You can ask for the certificate of analysis, which will tell you give you a sense about the quality. But it can be very tricky just by picking up a label and just even reading the label, because anybody can put anything on a label. And yeah, so that's difficult. But I would say, if you can get on your hands on the certificate of analysis, or verify whoever you're getting it from that they have seen the certificate of analysis, then I would say that's probably the only way that you might really, really know. Can it be used too much with regard to receptor sites overloaded? Okay, so this is a good question. And this is, I think, where some of the studies are coming. So remember, CBD doesn't really bind to receptor sites like THC does, and they think that that's kind of one of the things that they're looking at as far as THC is what really dosing that you need, because you don't want to overload receptor sites. CBD doesn't do that. However, it does seem to, you know, affect our signaling, which is how it's able to be so amazing in our body. There is no real overdose, so even if you just mistakenly, or a kid mistakenly took a bunch, we don't see any toxicity from that. But what I've found is that as somebody is bringing it on, they can be a little bit sensitive. And so, and just in my just brief experiences with CBD, I had one person who started it, and they felt like it actually revved their body up and gave them a boost of energy, and they had trouble sleeping that night. And so what we did was just bring them back and, you know, tell them to cut their dose and then start again. So, you know, and then they actually went up quite, you know, was able to kind of dose up quite pretty good to get the pain relief that they was looking for. But sometimes people are just very sensitive. So just, and we just don't know who that person is. So always start on the low side and then go up. The next question is it good for sciatica and bursitis? Yes, definitely. Those are all pain syndromes. And what it seems to do is it helps with different types of pain syndromes. And sciatica will be a nerve pain syndrome, bursitis, like more inflammation of the soft tissues. So yes, CBD would definitely, it will be great for those things. It will be great for the inflammation involved in those things. And one thing is that, especially if you're doing other things with the sciatica, so you're implementing good stretching, good exercise, you're, you know, also making sure that your diet is also a really good diet, and you're controlling your blood sugars and your stress levels, the CBD is going to really complement that if you really got those issues going on. Let's see. Another question. You mentioned CBD helping with viruses. Any research on HIV and lowering the viral load? Not so. I'm not. No, I don't have any research specifically on the HIV and lowering the viral load. Not like how the reishi mushrooms. So we did a presentation on medicinal mushrooms, and we do actually see that with the studies that they've done. They've done some studies with HIV and reishi, Ganoderma. Not so much with the CBD that I have been aware of to say that it does that. So I don't know right now the answers to that question. All right, I think that is it for the questions. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I am grateful for you guys and your time. I hope that it was helpful and informative to you. And if you feel, if you do have a few minutes and want to share any feedback, such as, you know, what you think could, what benefits you got from the talk, or if anything you felt like I needed to share, or anything else that you're interested in hearing, I love to hear your feedback. I am planning on doing another talk coming up in another month or so, and I think I'm going to focus a lot on brain health in this next talk. Got lots of people asking me about early dementia and things to do for their memory. So I'm hoping to put something for you guys, so watch out for that. That will be coming next. Bye.